A simple visit to the bank turned into an unbelievable moment of power and justice. A black woman walks into her own bank to make a withdrawal, but in 5 minutes, the tables turn in a way no one saw coming. A sleek black luxury car pulled up to the curb in front of a modern glass-walled bank. The door opened, and a poised, elegantly dressed black woman stepped out. Her heels clicked confidently across the polished tiles as she entered the building. Heads turned subtly, not just at her commanding presence, but at the quiet certainty in her stride. She walked straight to the teller's desk, greeted the young woman behind the counter with a polite smile, and slid a folder across the glass. "I'd like to make a cash withdrawal from this account," she said evenly, her tone calm, practiced. The teller opened the folder, scanned the documents inside, and paused. Her eyes flicked from the paperwork to the woman standing before her. Something about the amount, or perhaps the account holder's name, made her hesitate. Without a word, she pressed a button under the desk. Moments later, the branch manager appeared, a middle-aged man in a fitted suit, brisk in his movements, and clearly already forming opinions before reaching the counter. "Can I help you?" he asked, directing his words more toward the teller than the customer. "She wants to withdraw from this corporate account," the teller responded, gesturing toward the folder. The manager took one look at the woman, then at the documents. His expression shifted subtly, confusion, followed quickly by skepticism. He turned to her, eyes narrowing slightly. "Ma'am, do you have identification?" he asked. She nodded and handed it over. Driver's license, company ID, matching paperwork, everything in perfect order. He glanced at the names, then back at her. "And what is your role with this company?" he asked slowly. "I'm the primary account holder," she answered, her voice still calm. His brow furrowed. "I'm going to need to verify this," he said, not quite meeting her eyes. "I just did," she replied. "Everything's there." He exhaled sharply, then leaned in a little, his voice dropping. "You don't look like someone who owns this kind of account." For a brief second, silence stretched across the room. The woman's face didn't change. No anger, no surprise, just stillness, sharp and deliberate. Nearby, a few customers began to watch the interaction from the corners of their eyes. "I'm sorry," the manager continued, straightening. "Due to security concerns and policy, I can't authorize this withdrawal." The woman nodded slowly, then looked down at her watch. A small smile touched the corner of her mouth. Exactly 5 minutes later, everything was about to change. The black woman stepped aside from the counter, her expression unreadable. She reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and made a single call. Her voice was low, calm, and precise. No raised tone, no visible emotion. The manager watched from a distance, arms crossed, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. He assumed she was calling someone to complain, maybe to stall, maybe bluffing her way out of an awkward situation. He leaned against the edge of the counter, confident he had handled the matter. Less than 3 minutes later, the front doors of the bank opened swiftly. A sharply dressed man in a tailored suit stepped inside, flanked by 2 assistants. He moved with the authority of someone used to people making room when he walked. His eyes scanned the room and landed on the woman. Immediately, his face softened into a respectful smile. "Ma'am," he said, walking straight to her. "Sorry for the delay. I came as quickly as I could." The manager's posture stiffened. His eyes darted from the woman to the executive, clearly struggling to understand what was happening. "Is everything all right?" the executive asked, addressing her, not the staff. "Not quite," she replied, handing him the folder again. "Apparently, I don't look like someone who owns this kind of account." The executive's jaw tightened as he flipped through the documents. He turned slowly toward the manager, who was now standing awkwardly, trying to process the shift in dynamic. "This is our CEO," the executive said flatly. "Majority shareholder, founder of this institution. And that account you denied her access to? It's her executive account. Confidential, high-level operations only. She's not just a client. She built this place." A ripple went through the lobby. Customers whispered behind hands. Tellers glanced nervously at each other. The mood shifted instantly, respect replacing doubt. The manager's mouth opened, but no words came out. His face flushed, his confidence draining in real time. He looked like he was shrinking in place, unable to meet the woman's eyes. She stepped closer now, her voice still steady, but with weight behind every syllable. "I walked in today to make a withdrawal, and instead I was denied service, questioned, and judged." The manager said nothing. She tilted her head slightly, her gaze direct and unwavering. "Tell me," she said, her voice low, "do you treat all your clients like this, or just ones who look like me?" Behind closed doors, the atmosphere in the manager's office was thick with silence. The black woman sat at the head of the table, her posture composed. On one side sat the executive from corporate, firm-faced but silent, and beside him, a witness from HR with a notepad open. The manager entered last, his earlier arrogance now replaced with a tight-lipped unease. She gestured for him to sit. He obeyed. She spoke first, voice clear and measured. "Let's be direct. Today, I walked into my own bank to access my own account. I followed every procedure. I provided every document. What I received in return was doubt, obstruction, and judgment. Not based on policy, but on perception." The manager shifted in his chair. "I was just following protocol," he said quickly. "It was a large withdrawal. I had to protect the bank." She didn't flinch. "That's not what the policy says," she replied, sliding a copy of the internal withdrawal guidelines across the table. "No extra verification is required for account holders with active status and valid ID, which I provided. You had every means to approve it. You chose not to." He looked at the paper but didn't read it. "You saw a black woman in designer clothes requesting a six-figure withdrawal and assumed something was off. You didn't see a CEO. You saw a threat." The manager's jaw tightened. He looked to the executive, hoping for support. He got none. The executive spoke for the first time. "We've reviewed the footage, the hesitation, the language, the tone. It wasn't procedural. It was personal. And it violated conduct protocol on multiple levels." The manager's eyes dropped to the floor. The woman leaned in slightly. "This isn't about the money. I've withdrawn more than that before, with less drama. What happened today was about dignity, about how people are treated when they walk through those doors." The manager muttered, "I'm sorry." But the words were flat, hollow, and entirely unconvincing. She waited, as if giving him one last chance to say something real. He didn't. Her face remained calm, unreadable. Without a word, she opened the folder she'd brought in with her. She took out a single sheet of paper, placed it on the desk, and gently slid it across the surface toward him. Her expression didn't change. Termination letter. The silence in the room was final. The manager stared at the letter in front of him, disbelief flickering in his eyes, but no one moved to soften the blow. The executive confirmed it aloud. Termination effective immediately. No probation, no second chances. His authority had vanished with one sheet of paper. A quiet call was made to security, and moments later, 2 guards entered, not for the woman who had been questioned, but for the man who had questioned her. He stood slowly, face pale, and gathered what little dignity he had left. As he was escorted out, he glanced back once, but no one met his eyes. Outside the office, the atmosphere in the lobby had shifted. Staff members who had stood frozen earlier now looked on with a mix of surprise and respect. Some nodded subtly. Others simply watched, quiet but aware. The customers who had witnessed the incident from a distance straightened as she walked back into view. She moved with the same grace she'd entered with, but now the air around her carried weight. Presence. Power. She didn't gloat. She didn't look back. She simply walked through the space she had once built from the ground up, a space where she had once been welcomed as a visionary, and today, tested as a stranger. Near the door, a customer stepped forward, hesitant but sincere. "Thank you," he said softly, "for standing up, for all of us." She offered a nod, warm but brief, and continued toward the exit. The glass doors opened, and the sunlight caught her just right as she stepped outside. The same sleek black car waited at the curb. As she slid into the back seat, the door closing with a quiet finality, her face remained calm, unreadable, but her eyes carried the clarity of someone who had once again claimed their space. The engine started. The car pulled away from the curb. Inside her mind, or perhaps simply across the final narration, her voice echoed, firm, unshaken. "I didn't build this bank to be feared. I built it to be fair. And that starts from the top." The city blurred past the window. The moment had passed, but the message remained. They thought she was just another customer. But in 5 minutes, they learned who really runs the bank.